Welcome. You're listening to This Leader, the podcast. If you lead people and are seeking the transformational, high-impact secrets that will lead to greater joy and fulfillment in your work, will optimize your team performance, and will help you create a happy, highly productive workplace, then you are this leader and you're in the right place. I'm your host, Claire Laughlin, and each week my guests and I will explore the mindsets, techniques, and actionable strategies that will help you build the career, team, and organization of your dreams. Because I believe no one should have to suffer in a dysfunctional workplace. Let's get started. How much of your day do you spend trying to control things that are actually outside of your control? Maybe it's how a project will turn out or what someone else will think or feel. We plan, we strategize, but at the end of the day, we realize there's simply a lot that just isn't up to us. I've been there. I think we all have. But what if recognizing the limits of our control isn't a limitation for us at all, but it's actually the key to finding more peace and building better relationships and unleashing greater success? My guest today has spent over 15 years as a chief human resources officer leading organizational transformation at companies valued at well over $1 billion. I'm excited for you to meet Kate Terrell, who's guided over 10,000 employees across global organizations like Menlo Security, Octana, Driscoll's, and Whirlpool. She has an impressive track record when it comes to driving results. But Kate's most profound lessons didn't necessarily come from the boardroom or from work situations. They came from her personal journey through cancer, which taught her what it truly means to surrender to what you can't control while focusing your energy on what you can. I've had the great pleasure of working with Kate over the years, and I consider her an informal mentor of mine, hoping to convince her to be a formal mentor. Her wisdom shines through in how she's taken her hard-won lessons and become a leader dedicated to creating high-performing and deeply empowered teams. Today, we're going to hear about how she guides her team to take risks and how she deliberately chooses people who she says are smarter than her, and how she holds her team in a really special space that balances deep caring with very high expectations. Kate shows us that our true leadership, it isn't about controlling outcomes. It's about creating the conditions where extraordinary things can happen. So let's dive in. Here's my conversation with Kate Terrell. Welcome, Kate. I'm so happy to have you here with me today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's going to be a fun conversation. I know it will.
Absolutely. So I'm going to jump right in. In our pre-conversation, you shared just a little bit about your journey with cancer. I mean, specifically saying, I shouldn't even be here, and I wouldn't be if it wasn't for gratitude. And I know that that is a profound experience that shaped who you are and a lot of how you approach leadership. Would you mind sharing some of the details for us, only as much as you feel comfortable sharing, but I'd love to hear.
Sure. It was absolutely a very formative part of my life. In 2014, I was noticing that I was starting to get fat, quite frankly. And I was working out, I was eating right, something wasn't right.
Yeah.
And I had a very good friend who happened to be my doctor. We went there, we kind of dealt with some things. And she's like, if this isn't gone, I want to do an ultrasound. She did an ultrasound. She's like, there's something on there I don't really like. She's like, we need to do a CT scan. And then she showed up on my doorstep with tears in her eyes because they found a 9-centimeter tumor on my ovary.
Oh, wow.
And so we thought it was ovarian cancer. It turned out not to be. And that's a much longer story, but it turned out to be stage 4 appendiceal cancer. And if you want to talk about your life turning upside down in a moment, I was at the top of my career. Things were going great, amazing family, everything was just there. And then the next day, it felt like it had all vanished. And fortunately, because I had an amazing company with amazing benefits at the time, I was really able to kind of sleeves rolled up. We figured out it was appendiceal. That took a while, but then was able to go to MD Anderson. Had about 7 surgeries over the course of a year. One was a 16-hour-long surgery where I joke with my friends. I'm like, how many organs do you really need to live? They took out 2.5 feet of colon, my ovaries and uterus and all those things were already out. They took out part of my stomach, my spleen, of course, my appendix, that pesky little organ. And then they filled my abdomen with hot chemotherapy. They rolled me around for a couple of hours. And, I came through the surgery. And then I was able to come home eventually from Houston, again, having just an amazing support network, both from a family perspective, as well as my company perspective, as well as my medical team. Like, so fortunate, but came home, had something that turned into a wound, that turned into a fistula. I didn't eat it was 117 days. Actually, I had to be fed via TPN, which is essentially being fed through an IV. I had bilateral pulmonary emboli. Those were probably what scared me the most. So it was a really challenging year. And then I had another little bout, kind of recurrence, that happened where my feeding tube had been in 2016. I had that pulled out. So I am this year, I actually go next week. I will officially be 9 years cancer free. Next year will be 10 years. But I'm 11 years out of the big surgery and all of those things. And I think that experience for me, well, I think I've always had parts of it. I think it just came to more fruition. And those were two things. I'll start with the one that I probably didn't have enough of, which was gratitude. And somebody gave me a journal while I was sick, and I started writing to every day. I finished the day with, okay, what's just one thing, right? And I had some days where it was, I'm grateful just to be alive today. I'm just grateful to be alive. I'm grateful that I was able to spend time with my daughter, my family, or whatever those things may have been. And it was really important to ground me because I'm an achiever, right? Like, I am a high achiever, and I probably didn't pause and stop enough to look at what I did have versus what I didn't have. And so I think that was something that was pretty profound in terms of who I am and how I show up. I think the other piece that carries with me, and I think this was always there, but the connection to it became much stronger, was really about focusing on what you can control. There is so much in this world that you can't control.
Right.
And you can externalize, you can play the victim, you can show up with, well, I can't do this. And for me, it was really focusing on, okay, I can't control the fact that I had cancer,
Right.
but I can control who my doctor is. I can control being in the best shape of my life before I go into the surgery. I can control how I engage with being sick and all of those things. I certainly took time off of work while I was working through my illness, but I also went to work a lot because I was like, I don't want to sit on the couch and wallow in my illness. Like, I need something to be able to focus on. That's not for everybody. Everybody needs to make their own choice about that. But that was something I could control. I could come back and I could figure out how I could engage. And so, I think about really challenging times at work or in other circumstances, and just being able to say, like, well, I can't control this, this, and this, but I can control this, right? I can go ask for help, or I can work on this little piece of it. Maybe it's not everything, but I can focus on that. And I think that's something I hope that shows up in people who work with me.
Yeah, that is amazing. Thank you for sharing that. It's really profound when we have experiences like this, and then it brings things to the surface. I mean, the testimony here you're giving us is a sense like they were always there, but it brings it to the surface and it sharpens your focus on something that's really important to you. And I think that we may overlook the importance and the impact of getting out of that victim mindset because the world and life and every moment is full of things we can't control. And yet, control is sort of an illusion in and of itself, right?
Completely.
But to say, okay, what is in our control right now? Like, just again, taking it back to a leadership perspective is like, that is so empowering for a team. Let's not focus too much on the things that are outside of our control and let's bring our focus and attention right here, right now. What are we going to do next?
That's right. I like to call it like, you own it, right? So if you're working on something, well, that team didn't do what they were supposed to do. Okay, they didn't. What can you do? Can you go talk to them? Can you go offer to help them? What are the things you can do in order to help get the result that you're trying to get? And so I've never been a sit back and wait
Right.
kind of a person. And I almost sometimes, waiting or delaying in and of itself is like, it's a decision that is a not taking control type of a decision, right? And it's not to say that there aren't times that you do it. There aren't to say that there are times when you get really frustrated because your team member or the cross-functional team or whatever didn't. We're all allowed, I call it going below the line, but we're all allowed to go do that. The question is, do you recognize yourself and go, okay, I got to pick myself back up and I need to go focus on that. And I will tell you, I had some really bad days when I was sick. Some really bad days. There were days, again, in that gratitude journal where I'm like, okay, I'm alive,
Right. Still breathing.
still breathing. However, it was the next day where I was like, okay, it's a new day. I got to show back up and focus on what I can control. Yesterday was really crappy. I allowed myself to do that. Today's a new day. Let's go focus on what we can control.
Right. So many leaders yearn for that level of accountability on their teams. And I think we just really need to be able to model that. I know you to be a leader who has both a tremendous positive impact on your team and the people you work with, and an unwavering commitment to making things happen and success and excellence. And I want to make that link because I think that's a struggle for a lot of people. That we either over index on outcomes and goals and, making the grade or whatever, or we might, in some cases, over index on like, it's all about me having, warm fuzzies with my team. And I know a lot of leaders struggle with that because they want to have that connectedness, but they also know they need to get the outcomes and they don't know how to hold both.
I think it is really, really difficult to be able to hold those things at the same time because at the end of the day, you work for a business. That business has a purpose and an impact and probably financial goals that they are chartered to achieve. And our job is to help the business achieve its goals. That could be through a sales job, a marketing job, an engineering job, whatever those things that are. In my instance, it happens to be about working through our talent and people strategy as an organization. And, I see my role really in three areas, right? It's how do I have the best leadership and talent? How do I have highly engaged teams? And how do I make sure that those teams are enabled to perform at their very best in order to achieve the business results? And when I think about enabled to achieve, a lot of that goes back to that accountability and figuring out like, how do you show up of like, I'm going to own this? Because I will tell you, I would much rather with my employees be like, whoa, 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 you overstepped a little bit. Let's figure out how we redirect than to go, can you please like go lean into that? And so, that grit and hustle is what you need to look for, right? Like that person who's like, no, I'm going to take that and I'm going to go run with it. It's a foundational element, I think, to someone's success.
Absolutely. Even as you say that, Kate, I'm thinking about all the managers and leaders that I know who would almost take a beat right then and be like, ooh, do I really want to unleash that power? Because there's risk. There's risk.
There is risk, but I will tell you a story. I have an individual in my organization right now who, with the right environment and coaching and mentorship, I have watched him like make a step change in his leadership capacity in terms of leaning like we could do this and we can do this and the solutions orientation and pushing. And it's been so amazing to see because I'm like, I want more of that. It's just awesome. And thinking about not having that ability. So is there risk? Absolutely, there's risk. But part of your job as the manager is to say, really, really, how big is the risk? Like, okay, if this person's going to go spend $1 million on something that may not, like, okay, I get that risk. But like, if they're going to stub their toes a little bit and we can figure out how to back it up, but the result, if they get what they achieve, pushes the business further, who doesn't want that?
Right. Also, let's not forget the risk of just holding a person back and like getting 60% of what their awesome genius and brain capacity could deliver. Really?
My philosophy, and I would say it was a very hard lesson that I learned at Whirlpool, was I had an amazing team and I got my manager 360 feedback. And
Yeah.
basically, my team was telling me, like, you're still showing up like you're an individual contributor. You're not showing up like you are the person who's there to unleash us. And, like, it sticks, like, to this day, like, I can remember the room I was in, all of this, and of course, I thought I was a slug of the universe, right? I was like, "Oh my god, this is the worst thing ever." But I took the feedback to heart, and now when I think about the team that I'm working with, they are spectacular, and one of the reasons they are is because I think of my job as, like, my job is to surround myself with people who are complementary to me, not me, complementary to me, and better than me. Because when they're better than me and I can give them the ability to, like, go, run, do, make an impact, what we see is just amazing. Like, it's amazing. But it's a hard mental model, I think, sometimes, particularly for new people leaders to get into. Like, your job is to drive leverage. That is your job. And you do that by hiring phenomenal people who you can let go run. And, like, again, sometimes you might pull back on the reins, but that's okay. Or you may have to say, I see the possibilities. I see the vision. I do this a lot with my team. Like, it is there and it is super, super exciting.
Yes.
And we have to meet the business where the business is. And we have to help them get there. And this great place we're going, it's awesome, but we're not going to probably get there tomorrow. And if we try to go here too quickly, we're not going to get the sustainability that we really want. So how do we come back and meet the business where it is?
Right. And it's that commitment to both the business outcomes and goals and to the empowerment and engagement of the team, developing the individuals on your team and really helping them get there. I think that is a difficult ongoing balance, but maybe it's not a balance. I'm not sure. It's both. It's not a balance between this or that or a little of this and a little. How would you describe
Yeah,
that?
I think it is a balance, and it's thinking about what the business needs in order to be successful, and how do you allow your team members to make the contribution that they can make, while also recognizing sometimes your team members have a huge desire to make that business impact,
Yeah.
but they don't have the skills for where the business needs to go. And so your first job as a people leader is to go, what do I need to do to develop them?
Hmm.
But the second question you have to ask yourself is, can I develop them in the time frame that the business needs them to be performing? And I think that's the hard question, because when you have someone in particular who wants it, so, like, they've got that will, they've got that passion, they're working their butt off, but they don't have the competency that is needed at the right level, you've got to be able to have that conversation with them. I had someone on my team and she worked her butt off. She wanted to be making an impact, but it was also one of those situations where what the business needed and where she was going to be able to get to in the time horizon was not well matched. And Brene Brown always says, clear is kind, right? It's much better to have that conversation, because otherwise you're not setting the business up for success. You're not setting that person up for success. So all those things come together. And what's been fun for me is I continue to watch that individual's career and they're thriving. And, I think about another, and this was many years ago, there was an individual who was not right for the business where the business was at that point in time. And so we ended up, transitioning him out of the company. And he ended up coming back to me and saying, it was hard and it was a kick in the pants that I did not want, but I actually really needed it. And I'm way better off for it now. Like, it was hard then, but I'm way better off for it now. And so I think as a manager, you can also scare yourself into, well, this person has this knowledge, this person has whatever, this person is so nice. It can be hard sometimes to make some of those types of decisions. But going back to where's the business going? And it's not just what does the business need for today, but where's the business going and how is that going to evolve and how quickly are those skills and competencies and capabilities going to evolve?
What you just said makes me think, okay, I'm thinking through, my listeners' ears and I'm thinking, that sounds awesome. And developing people is hard. It takes a lot of focus. And to be able to say, okay, there's metrics and milestones I'm going to need you to meet. The business needs you to be here by a certain place. Like we are moving forward. This is the kind of team we're going to be. This is the kind of metric or whatever the outcome. This is what we need from you. That requires you as the team leader to be really clear on to gain and to create a lot of clarity on things that may or may not be easy to clarify.
There are definitely pieces that are very easy.
Hmm.
And then there are pieces that they're harder to quantify. I think about whether is this someone who drives positive and productive change? Is this someone who builds an amazing team who delivers above and beyond?
Right.
Is this someone who demonstrates proactive leadership and being able to drive those things? Those are harder to quantify, but that's where having communication on a regular basis, coaching, talking about what does it look like? Because again, driving change as a CHRO looks a lot different than driving change when you're 5 years out of school and you're doing one of your first jobs. But how do you articulate what those expectations are? And how do you build the relationship around coaching? And how do you give people the opportunity to stub their toes?
Right.
Because, like, I still stub my toes on a regular basis.
Sure. I mean, that's leaning in, that's learning, that's moving forward.
And I think this is something for me that it is probably only because I have now as many years of experience and, quite frankly, the fortune of having a lot of different experiences. But I also think that reflection and learning agility, like really reflecting on, okay, I did that really well, but I messed up here. How would I do that again? Or next time I need to do X, Y, and Z. It's the growth mindset, right? It is saying, like, I can still change. And I think that's one of the things, if I go back to when I was ill, realizing that I could change, right? Like, it is you are your own blocker of staying the same.
Right. That is so true. I think there's no end to the importance of self awareness being at the heart of success. We have to be able to be aware, and then we have to do just what you said, be able to look and say, what's working for me? What's not? How am I holding myself back? Not pointing outward, coming back to the victim thing we were talking about earlier, not pointing outward and say, well, it's because of you that I'm not doing this or that or the other thing. It's really comes back to that deep personal
Yeah,
commitment.
it is. And part of that growth is around seeking feedback and understanding whether you feel like the feedback is right or wrong, justified or unjustified, any of those pieces. The question is, like, do you want them to think about you that way? And if the answer is I'm fine with that, then so be it. But if you go, I really don't want them to think that way about me, that's not a belief I want them to have. Great. How do you take that feedback and go, okay, I need to show up differently. I need to do this. And sometimes you might have to hear that feedback 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, but important to just take it and not try to litigate it, right? Like your first thing is like, let me be defensive about it. And that's natural human behavior. Like that's what we do. It is once you've done that, do you then kind of, at least for me, I won't speak for other people. Like, do I relax a little bit and process it and go, okay, if I'm really honest with myself, yeah.
Yeah, I hear you 100%. I want you to take me inside one of these conversations, though, that you may have had. If we can just drill down to a little bit of specifics, like what would a conversation sound like with someone who appears to have the motivation, the will to accomplish the goal, but not the skill just yet? Can you just kind of give me a little structure for that?
It may be the conversation is something like, you know what? I really appreciate that you are working on A, B, and C. And I see you working really hard. And I see you asking even for feedback on A, B, and C. But let me tell you what driving change in this instance looks like. It really looks like you understand how this marketing team operates. You understand how these pieces of the puzzle fit together and what they're trying to achieve. And what I see you doing and what you're trying to do is you're listening, right? And you're doing what you're told to do. But what I'm not seeing is the critical thinking of, well, if they're trying to get over here, they're missing this team coming together in this way or this way. Or even like, well, they're doing what they need, but I actually notice like the disconnect is happening between marketing and sales. I'm making this up. So I expect you to understand what is the business goal they're trying to achieve and to be able to diagnose where are the gaps in trying to achieve that. And what I see you doing today is waiting for the leader to tell you what he wants you to do, as opposed to you coaching the leader on here are the gaps and here's how I think we could close those gaps. That's a different piece, right? And so you go, I get you, like you are working harder at doing what the leader is asking you to do. And that's great. The way you need to show up is to go, I actually see the gaps. I understand what the business is trying to do. And here's how I'm going to coach this leader on my thoughts on how we could close them.
That's great. Thank you. I'm assuming that at times you discover that the person you're working with has a different thinking style than that, or that's not the way they're wired. And ultimately, it's not that that person can't learn or anything like that. It's just that what you're asking of them is just going to be too big of a stretch in whatever amount of time, like we talked about.
That's right. That's right. And I think that's a judgment call that you have to be like, that's part of your job as a leader is to make that judgment call of, do I think, but with the right coaching, am I seeing enough leading indicators that give me the confidence that this is going to go in the right direction and go at the pace that we need it to? Or am I seeing enough indicators that go, it's just not going to be the right fit at the right time? And again, I want to be really clear. That doesn't mean that person is a bad person. It doesn't mean that they're not smart. It doesn't mean any of those things. It just means that this role and what this role needs at this point in time is not the right match.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, everybody wants to be successful. Everybody wants to be successful. And so helping go, you know what? You're going to be way more successful in this type of a role or doing this, that's going to help that individual just as much as it's going to help the business.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. I know you to be a person who builds very strong teams with very committed individuals. And I want to give you a minute. I want to ask you just to sort of bring that into a little bit more clarity. Like if you were to say, what's the essence of that? What's your secret for building really strong teams? Give me just a couple pieces of advice there.
I would go back to, I think you need to have folks who have diverse perspectives and experiences. And I have an amazing team, right? I have an amazing team right now. And where I get like really proud is not only do they deliver what is expected of a phenomenal HR function, but they also get tapped on by the business for a lot of other things outside of what I would call traditional HR work. And that makes me really proud. But that is around they've got different experiences, they've got different backgrounds. They push and they challenge not only each other, but me. Like we've created an environment where, as a matter of fact, I said to one of my team members earlier today, I'm like, yeah, I really should have listened to you on that call, right? Because they had a different perspective. And so I think that is really important. When I bring people on my team, I really try to look for folks who I go, they've got a skill that I don't have. They're better than me. I could work for them someday. They complement me. They bring in something different. And, you know, it's interesting because I tend to be a person who gets really excited about the possibilities and the big picture and where we could go and all of those things. And I have some pretty phenomenal executors on my team. Like they know how to take concepts and go, let me figure out how we get this and go, build this into the business and go do it. But we also feel a tension around that sometimes, right? But it's a really healthy tension.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what makes us perform well together because we're not afraid to call each other out or challenge, and they're not afraid to challenge me either. And I would also say my team is very connected to the business and what is the business trying to achieve and all of those things. And I think that helps build a high performing team. There's trust on the team. There is a commitment to conflict. I think we all know the results that we need to achieve together and how we do that. And so those are some of the things that I think about when pulling people together on the team.
I love it. You've got safety together, the safety that comes from real trust.
Yep.
It sounds like that allows for that healthy conflict. You've got commitment, you've got clarity about where you're driving toward and how you're going to get there.
Yep.
These are the things that need to be balanced by every leader, right? How are we going to work together and what are we doing? And it also sounds like you're looking for people that have the right blend of confidence in themselves and humility.
For sure. It goes back to that learning agility and that, oh, I can take the feedback and I can reflect on that. And maybe not in the moment, but being able to go, yeah, like I do need to work on that. Or I know I need to work on that, but I'm going to actually work on this. Like being able to have those kind of conversations and having the trust, I think that's something else our team, there's a trust of like when I'm telling you you could do something different or better, those types of things, there's an understanding that they're getting that feedback because we actually really care about them. And if we didn't care about them, we may not give them that feedback.
Right. Absolutely. It's such a strong foundation. I love it. So important. Well, Kate, as we wrap up here together, I want you to just think about you've developed so many people, you've been in so many companies in different kinds of environments, and it's been such a pleasure knowing you over the years and keeping pace with all the wonderful things you're doing. But when you think about these people that you've worked with and they're developing and leading their own teams now and years from now, what do you hope, in a sense, that they carry forth from their time with you? What do you hope they remember about your leadership? And what do you hope they maybe even implement in their own way with their own teams?
I think first and foremost, it really is about thinking what is possible as opposed to, well, there's this roadblock. And that, again, it goes back to focus on what you can control and think about what is possible, right? Because if you don't think about the possibilities, your ability to make an impact maybe just isn't as impactful as it could be. So being able to think about the possibilities and what needs to be true
Mm-hmm.
in order for those possibilities to become a reality. So I hope people really think about that. I hope people also practice the art of feedback. They reflect. There were many, many years where I really approached things as the cup was half empty. And the paradigm of the cup is half full and how do we go out and get there? I hope I do that more than I used to. And I hope that others take that with them as well. Those are some of the big things for as I think about the teams that I've gotten to work with. And, I will say I've been so fortunate and that I've really gotten to work with some amazing people throughout the course of my career. Whether it's been mentors, bosses, peers who push me to get better, whether it's my team members who also push me. I've been really, really fortunate to have that.
Your gratitude definitely shines through. So, thank you for all you're doing to develop people and to create that kind of energy and commitment everywhere you go. I really appreciate that. And it's been a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for being here with me.
It has been so much fun to catch up, Claire. I really, really appreciate it.
Talk to you soon. So, if you remember back to that question I asked at the beginning, like how much of your day do you spend trying to control things outside of your control? We need to be conscious of that. But here's what Kate taught us.
The most powerful leaders focus their energy on what they can actually influence. And one of the most impactful places to do that is in developing our people and how we develop our people. Kate shared this masterful framework. She slipped it in there, right? For development conversations. And I want to break that down for you because she makes it look so easy. But I just want to kind of go back over the structure that she introduced here for us. Her approach starts with genuine appreciation for something that the person does well. Okay, so starting with appreciation, then explaining the specific performance that you want to see. She made it really detailed and explicit. Don't be vague. Don't skim over it. Really explain what you're looking for. Next, in her conversation, she said, tell them exactly what you observe them doing now. So here's what I want to see, and here's what I observe now, making those really clear. And then clarify how that observation is different from the desired behavior. Kind of go into that and explain the gap. You need to be specific so the person knows how to change. And then tell them exactly what you'll be watching for going forward. Like, what are the signs you're looking for? And again, be specific about those behaviors and outcomes. The more specific you are and descriptive, the better this will go overall. And then finally, of course, follow up consistently and support that person as they make the change, looking out for instances of catching them doing it right. Because whether you're leading a team of 2 or 200, this framework works because it balances care and support with real clarity, and it balances appreciation with accountability. Kate demonstrates that great leadership isn't about controlling the outcomes. It's about creating crystal clear pathways for people to succeed. I'm so grateful to Kate for sharing her wisdom and that incredibly practical development framework. One of the things that makes Kate extraordinary is her ability to see this big picture while drilling down to specifics. She's really masterful at shaping high-performing teams using this skill set, and she does it all with incredible generosity and humility. So as she continues leading organizational transformation at Menlo Security, her approach to empowering others is definitely something I'm carrying forward. You can connect with Kate on LinkedIn to learn more about her approach to leadership and development. So as we close today, here's what I want you to think about. Who on your team could really benefit from a development conversation using Kate's framework, right? Who will you invest in? Who will you provide with that structured support and clear expectations so they can do their best work? If this conversation sparks something for you, I'd love to hear about it. Make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an episode. And until next time, remember that the best leaders don't seek to control. They create the conditions where people can thrive.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode. To learn more about my services and for lots of free resources and additional tools to enrich your journey, visit my website and subscribe to my newsletter at clairelaughlin.com. If you have a question about leadership, teams, or organizational culture you'd like me to address on the podcast, please reach out to me at support@clairelaughlin.com and connect with me on social channels @ClaireLaughlin Consulting. Until next time, lead the way.